Hello everybody, and welcome to my PAX West recap video. Yeah, I went to PAX West 2019 this year in Seattle, and I did a lot, played a lot, got a lot, all that stuff, and I felt like giving a little recap of it, of what I did, my thoughts on it, the games I played, my thoughts on them, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is mostly going to be off the cuff, but I do have a little list here in Notepad of the games I specifically wanted to mention that I either saw or heard about or played, and I've got some simple some basic visuals here, pictures I took while I was there, so you won't be completely in the dark here. So like this, first game I did. So first thing I did when I got to PAX was I went to the Indie Mega Booth, which the reason I did that is because it's different every year, because it's indie, and I like the variety that entails. Although you do always get the sort of Monster Prom kind of stuff popping up every single friggin' year, and by the Monster Prom kind of stuff, I mean that art style, that like weird art style to it. Uh, that always pops up every year, but this one really caught my eye, and this was the first game I played, Backbone, a dystopian noir adventure. I don't have gameplay footage of, but you can kind of see the screens down there. Backbone is essentially, yes, it's a world where everyone is an animal. Yeah, that's just a thing. This is how it is. Artistic style, I guess. And it's done in pixel art, and it's like this ever so slightly more advanced 1950s question mark kind of world. Um, and of course it's noir, so you play as this like raccoon detective named Howard Lochore, I believe. I don't remember the last name all that well. I know it was Howard something. And he gets, it's the typical noir sort of detective story, and like the gritty detective gets hired on for what seems like a simple job, but gets wrapped up in something way bigger than he knows. That kind of thing. But it's executed pretty well. It's executed really well, actually. It looks friggin' beautiful with the art style. Um, it's just very creative overall, and one thing I like about it is it's a point-and-click adventure, which means it's all about the story and the puzzles. Now, the story, it looks interesting. It gives you, there's a little plot twist in the beginning, which is like the prologue, I think. And I think the prologue is actually free on Steam. The game itself is coming out in like 2020, I think. But the puzzles are the important part, because that's like the main gameplay. And the puzzles, I appreciate this. I appreciate the way they do the puzzles, because the puzzles are they are not like LucasArts, Grim Fandango, Monkey Island, Moon Logic nonsense. They're challenging little puzzles, right? Sometimes they're not obvious, but they're not crazy hard to understand. Like honestly, when I played stuff like Grim Fandango, I seriously wondered how long it took people to figure out how to solve these puzzles to make the guides on how to solve the puzzles, because of just how ridiculous they were. The puzzles I experienced here in the demo, pretty good, pretty good. They were decently challenging, but not like infuriatingly confusing or something. So yeah, Backbone's shaping up to be a pretty interesting game. I'm keeping my eye on it. What else did I have here? Yeah, Scaleboy, Scaleboy. I don't remember what order I put these games in, these images in. So I didn't get a picture of Scaleboy, but I wanted to have something visual up here. So this is what you get. Scaleboy was this. It was this weird like uh, pixel voxel art. I don't know if it's voxels or pixels though, because it's isometric 3D, but it's also done as if it's pixel art. I don't know if that counts as voxels though. But it's like if you did pixel art and then made it like an isometric 3D game. That's sort of the style you get from Skellboy. And yes, it is called Skellboy. I know basically everyone at the booth was incredibly confused as to what the name was because the like skull S thing looked either like a background logo or like the number 8. It's like some people are like Kellboy, what? Everyone is very confused. But it's Skellboy because you're the little skeleton guy right there on the screen. The idea seemingly being that there's some kind of undead apocalypse happening with like evil warlocks and zombies and stuff, and you were brought back to life as a skeleton, but for some reason you are not inclined to murder every human in sight mindlessly like everyone else, and so you fight against the monsters instead. You reach like the first boss fight, and that's when the demo ends. It's interesting. It's interesting to say the least. I'm not entirely sure I'd say I'm into it. It looks interesting. I think that's the most I can say. It's just the the style looks weird. I like the idea of the fact that it's like a an action dungeon crawler type of thing, where you're running around killing enemies, getting loot, that kind of stuff. And it's random each time you play through it. The Some of the loot you get is randomized. Uh, and I like the added mechanic of being a 3D plane where you can jump and whatnot. And that adds a bit of just a little bit of extra strategy into how you play the game. But again, it's a little on the weirder side. I'm not entirely sold on it, but it's still decently interesting. Right next to the Indie Mega booth, um, I know this game's already out, but I just found this hilarious. Was Graveyard Keeper. So of course, Devolver Digital and Tiny Build had their booths, and right next to the Indie Mega booth was was I believe was I don't know if these guys are associated with Tiny Build, but Graveyard Keeper. You could play the Graveyard Keeper demo on the Switch, and you to do it you laid back in a coffin, a special Graveyard Keeper coffin to play it, and so that was naturally I had to get a picture because that was pretty fun. That was pretty fun. Naturally, Borderlands 3 was there. I could not get into the lines for that. That was multiple hours long waits, like 2 to 3 hour waits last I heard for that because the booth was freaking huge and just in the middle of one of the areas. I managed to finally get a clear shot of these statues on the last day because at least the statues look pretty cool. Um, but yeah, uh, no, I don't know what to say about the game itself though, because I wasn't able to get to play it because, well, God knows I'm not waiting in line that friggin' long. But at the same time, it's Borderlands, and I mean, from what I've seen of it before, even before the PAX, Borderlands. This is the thing with Borderlands. Borderlands is generally fun, but it's also Borderlands. Like it's the same thing every time. There's basically no fundamental difference to the gameplay, the functionality of any of the Borderlands games. All you get are characters with different abilities, but you all get the same kinds of guns and whatnot every time. There's no real functional major differences between them, so it's like, I mean, it's fun. If it's your thing, it's your thing, you know? Uh, I imagine Borderlands 3 is going to be your thing if you already like Borderlands 1, 2, pre-sequel, all that stuff. You know? It's just don't as far as I know, I'm not going in expecting anything new. And besides, I'm probably not even going to get it cuz uh what was it? It's on PC, it's coming to the Epic Games Store exclusively and I refuse to interact with Epic under any circumstances. So I'm not going to be doing that. But thankfully, my dad loves the Borderlands series, and he loves playing it on the PS4. So I may get a chance to do that because he's guaranteed to be buying that for PS4. So oh well, maybe I'll give my thoughts on it then. But yeah, Borderlands 3, eh, probably not going to be very different from the other ones, just fancier, I guess. But the statues, the booth was friggin' huge, crazy. Statues are really cool looking at PAX. That's about it. People were yelling to like uh, keep keep the line moving because it's right next to the hall that links the two parts of the convention center, the conference center, because it's like connected via sky bridge. And so people are like walking there, and then there's like a small hallway between the wall and the actual line for the booth. So people are yelling like, "Keep the line moving, keep the line moving!" They're like just keeping people to keep the flow going. I believe is what they were saying to keep people moving. So yeah, what else did I do here? All right, Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I have never played Monster Hunter, at least not Monster Hunter World. I think I have the 3D. I have one of the 3DS games, like Monster Hunter Generations X or something like that. I have it used, but I bought a used copy of that uh, before. But this booth was another one of those crazy ones. I took a picture of this because the statue is again amazing, and having been an exhibitor at a con before, I was helping a family friend group set up their comic store booth at AwesomeCon, and they had a Hulk statue that we had to lift up. And seeing that whole process go down, I can't imagine what kind of insanity had to go down to get this thing, this monster, figuratively and literally into the booth, into the convention center alone, let alone set it up properly in the booth. It's insane. So I appreciate the effort that went into that. The thing itself, I mean, it's a Monster Hunter World expansion, so most people already know what they're getting into with that one. And this was another one where they just had a piece of tape. They had like tape on the ground to indicate where the lines started and end for these various booths, at least if they were big enough. And they just one part of the extended line, mind you, the extended part for when the first part of the line is already full. At the end of the extended line tape was it written in tape 2 hour wait. You get there and it's a 2 hour wait. You go any further, it's going to get longer. So yeah, that was another one where it's like I don't even have the original Monster Hunter World, so I'm not playing that. All I can say is everyone is incredibly hyped for it. So yeah. This one, okay, this thing I just found interesting because you just had these people cosplaying as all the Capcom characters. I love the Mega Man guy, and the Mega Man guy just doing a little smile to himself. I just found that funny, just how different he looks. Teppen is like, it's like Capcom's, I think it's their new, like, crossover fighting game, you know, with all their franchises. And, apparently they weren't getting nearly as many people as they wanted because they were starting to offer free t-shirts to people who would play the game. So, ugh. And the line already had a decent weight to it, so I guess it might have been another thing of high expectations. So it's people were going like, "You get a free t-shirt if you play the game. Come on, you don't get in line. No, oh no." um, Teppen itself, I watched some people. I was watching the booth go down from and the screens and all that. It it didn't look all that special, honestly. You know, they tried to hype it up as like a big new competitive fighter, but honestly, I don't know. It might have been the art style or the fact that it came out of nowhere or the fact that it's called Teppen. That name just sounds really weird to me. Probably because it sounds way too much like Tekken. But yeah, something about it. It just seems way too. I guess you could say generic looking to be the next big thing. You know, it doesn't come off as anything special, right? It just comes off as another game that most people will probably forget about in like a month. You know? So, yeah. This was one of the games that I did wait in line to play because, funnily enough, Bandai Namco had a really efficient line. Really efficient one. They would cap it off. They had a little sign told you when they would uncap the line. They kept that thing moving because I believe their games had like a 20-minute time limit on them, regardless of what point you were in the game and all that. So I got to play both of their games, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot and Code Vein. I went into Dragon Ball Z Kakarot first because that's one I was actually excited for, and mm, me likey, me like it. Uh, at least what I played, I like it. It's this like semi-open world Dragon Ball Z adventure where um, I believe at least in the start you play as Goku, you know, going through the Dragon Ball Z story as before. But story-wise, it seems interesting because it takes an extra focus on on like the relationship between Goku and Gohan. Like that seems to be what they're aiming for with this game. With like it's the story of Goku and Gohan, and because the thing they really hype up in the trailers and stuff is also the like the passing of the torch from Goku to Gohan when Gohan does the Kamehameha to obliterate Cell and all that stuff, right? That seems to be their kind of their the aim they're going for, and I find that pretty interesting. You know, not just another bland retread of the Dragon Ball Z story. Like God knows how many DBZ games before I've done it at this point, right? Gameplay wise, it's fun. It's fun. If you like Xenoverse, you're gonna really like this because Xenoverse is basically it's this game is basically a really well polished Xenoverse in terms of its gameplay. You know, you got your four sets of special moves that you have to hold down and then hit a button to activate. You do your various combos and whatnot. And all that, and it changes based on the character you pick. You have a little RPG system where you level up and allocate stats and all that. You even have little side quests where you talk to much smaller and lesser known characters from DBZ history. I'll get to that later. Uh, and yeah, you do these little side quests for them. Like in the demo, there were two side quests. One was Nam the Merchant, and the former Red Ribbon android Aider. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people who have grown up with Dragon Ball Z have never heard of those characters because they're Dragon Ball characters. So that was interesting seeing them pop in, because the way the demo worked was you could play for 20 minutes or until you go through the main story and beat Raditz. Do the big Raditz fight and beat him, then your game would end. So yeah, it's an interesting game. I'm liking it so far. It has a release date, so hopefully it actually comes out. Sometimes these games that seem to be trying to be this big epic thing, sometimes they really don't work out, and I hope that's not the case with this one because this one looks pretty interesting. Okay, now Code Vein. Code Vein was on the other side of the Bandai Namco booth. I didn't get a picture of it because I wasn't thinking about it at the time. Code Vein confuses me. It confuses me a lot, and I'm not sure how I feel about it at all. It's the way I can describe it. The easiest way I can describe it is anime Dark Souls. I know it's weird. I say anime Dark Souls because the gameplay is like a fast-paced Dark Souls. It's like a mix of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, which I mean they're made by the same company, but still, it's like that. You have like it's you have a bunch of weapons, this like stance system where your base stats and advantages change depending on which of the three stances or codes I believe they're called you have equipped. Um, and that also changes like what weapons you're good at, what abilities you're able to use, all that kind of stuff. And some weapons, you can only use some abilities with certain weapons, that kind of thing. Uh, I tried sifting through all of the stuff that was shown in there, and oh, it goes deep. It runs deep. Menus upon menus. It runs deep in there. Very much a Dark Souls inspired game, heavily inspired by Dark Souls and Bloodborne, very much so. And then anime because, well, just look at the picture on your screen. That is anime. That is very hardcore anime. And yeah, I have no clue what's going on in the game, like story wise. Absolutely zero clue. You just get thrown into a level and are told, progress as far as you can within 20 minutes. And just die as many times as you need. Some people got to the boss, I didn't. I got nowhere near the boss. I barely understood half the systems that I was trying to to play this game with. One thing that they did was they have a you have a partner in this game, an AI controlled partner who will cast spells and do attacks along with you. So you do have some help at least to deal with some of the more annoying enemies. So that's good at least. But yeah, Code Vein, extremely confusing, very weird, very Dark Souls inspired. If that's your thing, you'll probably love it. Who knows? One thing that is a big plus for me, that I will say though, is the fact that apparently you can create your own character, and that there is deep character customization in that. Uh, if you know me, you know I love character customization. I love that. That is a huge plus for me in anything. Being able to make and customize your own character is a huge plus for me in any game. So you get a plus for me on that one, Code Vein. The rest of it, I am entirely confused. Nicalis had a booth nearby as well. It was nearby the Bandai Namco booth. Nicalis are is a publisher of stuff like a lot of Japanese games, but also stuff like The Binding of Isaac and Crystal Crisis, which I'll get into. Is that the one I showed here? No. Um, so the two games I played there was one called Dungreed or Dungreed. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's spelled Dungreed, so it's supposed to be like a mashup of dungeon and greed, because the idea is you're like some kind of adventurer going into a dungeon to get a bunch of money and stuff. Uh, and so that's kind of the gimmick, and you're supposed to just run through the dungeon and get through as much of it as possible until you inevitably die. You know, roguelike, basically. I say roguelite specifically, not roguelike. Um, that's the idea. I played it a little bit, but the problem was they were using controllers for it, and judging by the way the buttons were mapped out, I'm uh I'm not entirely sure it was meant to be played on a controller, because some of the like aiming mechanics and whatnot just didn't feel like they were made for a controller. So who knows? Maybe it plays better on PC, but I don't know. It seemed kind of for me. Seemed kind of nothing exciting, but not terrible. You know. The other thing in there that I played was Crystal Crisis, which I love. It's a puzzle game that is a crossover between a bunch of Nicalis properties and other licensed stuff. It's a puzzle game in the sense of like I don't know how you describe it. It's a mix of like Puyo Puyo and Tetris, where you have your like a rectangle, right, like Tetris, and you get these pairs of colored blocks that you drop down. And sometimes the blocks will be the same color, sometimes they'll be different colors, whatever. You can rotate the uh, the blocks so that it's either vertical with like one on top, one on the bottom, or you can reverse it so it's vertical with the other one on top, other one on the bottom. Or you can keep it horizontal and choose whether the color is on the left or right side. And if you push it to the far side of the screen, you can split the pairing and put one on the far left side of the box and the other one on the far right side of the box and drop them there for like an extra bit of strategy right there. And the idea is you want to pair up as many of the same colored squares as you possibly can, because you will eventually get a crystal. Not well, I think they're all called crystals. But you'll get this thing that looks more like a crystal. That's like a smash crystal, and depending on what the color of that little smash crystal thing is, when you place it near blocks of that color, um, when you place it near a block of that color, that block and the block adjacent to that, and the block in turn adjacent to that, and the block adjacent to that, and so on, will break. You know, Tetris style. They'll get cleared. And that's your combo. That's how you clear your board, and then you deal damage to your opponent because it's a combat puzzler. And every time you do a big combo like that, or do multiples of those at the same time, and all that stuff, You'll throw garbage onto the other. You'll throw garbage onto the other person's box in the form of countdown blocks, which are these colored blocks that have numbers on them, and that basically says the countdown blocks are worthless for your combos until uh, a certain number of times you've placed blocks. Then they'll become normal blocks again. You can use them to combo and fix clear your screen with combos and whatnot. That's the idea, and the various characters you have all have special abilities to like help you clear your screen or mess with the opponent's screen, all this kind of stuff. And it's all different based on each of the characters. It's all very interesting. I've got it on my Switch. It's pretty good. It's pretty good if you like combat puzzlers. And it's got some really interesting characters in there, like Isaac from The Binding of Isaac, and Astro Boy. Who here remembers Astro Boy? I do. I still have that Game Boy game, Astro Boy. It's basically just Mega Man, but Astro Boy. So yeah, that was interesting. That was the Nicalis booth in a nutshell. Supergiant had a booth. They had a booth where they not only had a merch store, and right next to it was this beautiful assortment of the weapons that not weapons but necessarily, but the sort of iconic items from each of Supergiant's games. And the thing they were showing off was Hades, because Hades is coming to Steam in December. Yay! I'll be able to play it now without having to interact with Epic, because I refuse to interact with Epic at all. Um, so that's cool, and I played the demo for Hades that they had there, and Hades is really good. I mean, I didn't have any doubts that it was really good, but it's good to know after having played it that I know it's really good. And I can't wait to play it. If you're wondering what it's like, it's more like a fast-paced Bastion than anything else. Um, Transistor was more like a real-time strategy game, and Pyre is occult soccer. So, yeah. If you're looking for like a fast-paced roguelite Bastion, Hades is your go-to. So yeah, and this has also inspired me to play through the other Supergiant games again. So yeah, that'll be fun. So that was that booth. They were also giving out these free like red orange laurels to people who played the Hades game, because that's like the laurel that that the character wears, who's like the son of Hades and all that. He's trying to escape his father's realm. This game, I wasn't able to play it. I wasn't able to play Indivisible. Uh, because the first time it was incredibly busy, and then the other time, what was it? It was incredibly busy the first time I saw it, and then the other time they were only doing it for like the press and whatnot. And then by the time they had opened it back up again, we kind of forgot about it. So yeah, but I've seen some footage. I've seen some people play it, and I've heard people talk about it, and everyone seems to love this game. It's got some like it's some kind of like RPG thing. I'm not too sure about it, but I'm gonna keep my eye on it because everyone else seems to friggin' love this game. But I didn't get to experience it myself, so yeah. Oh well. Naturally, the Behemoth was there, showing off all their stuff because this is like their 15-year anniversary. I got their like anniversary T-shirt, which had like a little calendar of all the years ever since they released Alien Hominid, and like on what years did what game come out on what console and all that stuff. That was kind of cool. Got a little Orange Knight figurine because the Orange Knight's the best knight. You don't lie. Got this little picture of the cat guard because I thought it was cute. They weren't really showing off anything new there. It's just their normal stuff. You know, Castle Crashers, Back Off Barbarian, Battle Block Theater, Pit People, even Alien Hominid. The fun part was that it was all in arcade machines. They had it all inside a. You didn't just play the game normally with a controller in front of a screen. You stood up and played the games on these fancy arcade machines for them. So that was fun. Um, the Behemoth booth is always just a simple, fun little booth, even when they don't have like a fancy new game to show off. Windjammers 2, yeah. I know it's showing off some other stuff there, but that was the main thing I was looking for, Windjammers 2. Because, man, I liked watching the original Windjammers. I just never got to get my hands on it. Now Windjammers 2 is a thing, and that just makes me very excited. If you don't know Windjammers 2, it's basically Extreme Pong. I think that's all you really need to know about that. Extreme Pong. Yeah, very excited for that. Very fun, very stupid, and I love it. Vigil the Longest Night. This was on. So this stuff was all on the second floor, like level 6, I believe is what they call it. Vigil the Longest Night was. It's. I didn't. It looked really good. Like the art style is beautiful, and I wasn't the one that ended up playing it because I was playing other stuff at the time. My dad was the one who demoed it because going to PAX, going to cons tends to be a family thing. Especially because my dad also loves video games. And he demoed this while I was demoing something else, and he really liked it. He really liked it. He thought it was really cool. Um, and I mean, the art style looks very interesting in a very gothic sort of way. Um, and considering my dad has pretty good taste in games most of the time, I'll take his word for it that this is a that this is a pretty decent game coming up. So keep your eyes on it. This was the game that I was demoing there, Elden Path of the Forgotten. I usually like playing these weird pixel games. Elden is a very vague game, I think intentionally so. Might I add, the entire point is that you're trying to figure out what in the world's going on right now with the like occult stuff that's going on in like outside. Like you see a woman open up a portal to like hell or something and get sucked in, and then the portal disappears, and then that's how it starts. You're just you just walk out of the house after that, and then monsters are everywhere, and you have to fight the monsters and like I guess like a top-down pixel Dark Souls. I, it feels wrong saying Dark Souls because I know that's a common comparison. Sorry, but it feels wrong saying Dark Souls because that's a common comparison, but at the same time, it's the same concept of like, you want to dodge roll and be careful with when and how you hit and all that stuff so that you don't just die miserably because the whole point is that your character's kind of slow and you're limited in your abilities. You have like a stamina bar or a mana bar for like these little spells that you can do to help yourself out in combat and all that. But the game is very clearly in beta because my main issue with it was that I don't know if it was the fact that there was also a controller connected, as well as a keyboard and mouse. But for some reason, I was able to use the controller, and sometimes I was able to use the keyboard and mouse to do certain things. Sometimes they wouldn't work on one and work on the other. It was weird. Um, on the main menus, certain sub menus just would be blank. Like if I hit new game, there was just on the part of the screen there was just a like slot 3, and I imagine that's like save slot 3, but I couldn't actually like reach it with the selector. Instead, the selector was just choosing this, I guess, save slot that doesn't physically exist. Like there's no visual representation for it, but that's just how you started the game, so that was weird. Um, and beyond that, it there was some pretty big input delay. Like I could notice that there was like a second to 2 seconds whenever I hit like attack or dodge. There was like at least a second to a second and a half where I would hit a button and then it would take that moment and then it would happen, which for a game that seems to be about precision is a very bad thing to have. So yeah. On the same floor, naturally, Yacht Club was there showing off all their fancy Shovel Knight stuff. Shovel Knight Dig, Shovel Knight King of Cards. They've got a board game now. Yeah, they're doing a Kickstarter for a Shovel Knight board game. Yeah, it's weird. That was just it was an interesting booth because it was like the big booth of the second floor because the second floor was like double A games for the most part. So this was like you know the Square Enix or the Monster Hunter World booth equivalent of the double A floor. So yeah, what else I got here? Haunted Halloween '86. This was funny. This one was just funny in concept. Haunted Halloween '86 is it's apparently, from what I can tell, a remake of Haunted Halloween '85, which this company first made. And Haunted Halloween '85 certainly seems like more. It was a more limited version, so I guess '86 is like their attempt at doing a real version, a true version of what they wanted to make. Now that they have some support, um, it's it's a side-scrolling adventure action game. Where you're just fighting off zombies. You're a kid, 1986. You start off in an arcade, and oh no, zombies are a thing, and it's Halloween, so you gotta fight your way through the zombies and not get infected and all that. The fun part is, as you can see, they made this game compatible with the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original Nintendo Entertainment System. It was designed as an old NES game from the 80s, and you could actually buy NES cartridges for this game. And so that's very funny. That's very funny. And I played the demo, and it's pretty fun, if hard. It's very clearly designed like an NES game. It's very much designed to be rather difficult, and where you gotta take your time to get through it all. So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. This was another thing that my dad wanted to get his hands on a lot. Playdate. I was totally unaware of this, but apparently my dad was clued in on this thing like crazy. Playdate is this, it's not necessarily a game, it's this little pad that you see here that has games on it. It's got Wi-Fi and all that, so it can connect to the internet. Uh, and the idea is that you carry this around and you play games on it. Well, it's as simple as that. Um, and of course, you have a crank on the side. So like the demo game they had was this one that you see on the screen here, where it was this guy who he has something to do every day, and you have to use the crank to speed up time and make him run faster to go do his thing, whatever thing he's trying to do for the day, which is seemingly to find a way to impress the girl every day or something, to ask her out on a date or whatever. That seems to be the idea, but there are like things you have to do to try and avoid obstacles by like mo- moving forward and rewinding the crank back and forth and all that. And it was clearly designed just for the crank because the buttons on the bottom don't do anything, but it was just to show off the crank. But yeah, it's a weird little game, and apparently the idea is that you like subscribe to the Playdate service, um, and you'll once you get your version of the little Playdate thing, the little gamepad, um, you'll get these like updates every month or weekly that updates your Playdate console with a new game to play. So that's interesting. It's weird, um, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Did I have anything else? This one, just a quick mention. Dwarf Fortress on Steam. Dwarf Fortress, remade and on Steam. Makes me very scared. Did I have anything else? No, I didn't. Okay, that was about it for PAX. What else? Did I miss anything? Not really. Other than, like, I played Disgaea 4 because it's coming on Switch now. And whatever. If you like Disgaea, you like Disgaea. It's a tactics game. That's about it. Anything else? They showed off Tropico 6, but Tropico 6 has been out since March. Nothing new. That's about it, yeah. That was about it for the stuff I interacted with at PAX, at least as far as I can remember or felt the need to take note of. So yeah, that was PAX West 2019. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this little recap of mine. I certainly enjoyed talking about it because I really wanted to just uh, yell at something about it. So yeah, This was fun to do. PAX was fun as usual, and I hope I have helped clued you in on some games that you might be interested in that you might not have heard of until now. So yeah, this has been the Rat Man, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.